Good morning all. Today we are going to see about intercellular connection. My name is Sree Balaji, working as a tutor in Department of Physiology, Sree Balaji Medical College and Hospital. Learning objectives of today's classes. First we have to see about the classification of intercellular connections and the proteins involved, and finally we are going to see about cell adhesion molecules. We will see one after the other. First we will see the definition and classification. What is cell junction? A cell junction is nothing but the connection between one cell to the other cell, that is the neighboring cell, or we can also say it as a connection between the cell to its extracellular matrix. So what is the other name for cell junction? It is also called as membrane junction. Now coming to the classification, it is classified into three types. First one is occluding junction, second is communicating junction, third is anchoring junction. First we'll see about occluding junction. Occluding junction, it basically prevents intercellular exchange of substances, that is, it prevents the movement of ions and molecules from one cell to another. Example for occluding junction is tight junction. Tight junction is a type of occluding junction. It is an intracellular occluding junction that prevents the passage of large molecules. It is also called as zonular occludence. So it is present in apical margins of epithelial cells, in intestinal mucosa, walls of renal tubules and choroid plexus, etc. Basically, it is an intercellular occluding junction. As the name indicates, occluding means closing. So it is also called as blocking. Since it is an occluding or blocking, it is not going to allow the passage of larger molecules. So usually it is seen in the region where membranes of the adjacent cells fuse together firmly. Most of the time it is present on the apical margin of the cell. Mainly it is seen in the apical margin of, as I have told you, mainly it is seen in the apical margins of epithelial cells, that is epithelial and endothelial cells of intestinal mucosa, walls of renal tubule, capillary walls and choroid plexus, etc. Now coming to the structure of tight junction. It is made up of ridges. So this ridge is having two halves. One half of the ridge belongs to one cell, whereas the other half belongs to the other cell. So between two cells, we have the occluding junction or tight junction. So this tight junction is made up of ridges fused with one another very tightly and occupies the space between the two cells. Each half of the ridge consists of tight junction strands. These are the proteins involved in formation of tight junction into two types. The tight junction membrane, first type is integral membrane protein. The second is peripheral membrane protein. The tight junction membrane are also called as integral membrane protein, such as it contains such as occludin and junctional adhesion molecules, also called as JAMs. Sac-fold proteins or peripheral membrane proteins such as singulin, symphylicin and ZO1, 2 and 3. Next we'll see about the functions of tight junction. So the first function is strength and stability. The tight junction holds the neighboring cells of the tissue firmly and provides strength and stability of the tissues. The second function is the most important function. It has only selective membrane permeability. It only allows certain smaller molecules. It forms a total barrier for larger molecules. In the epithelial and endothelial cells, the tight junction is the most apical intercellular junction, which functions as a selective semi-permeable diffusion. It has a function, the third function is, it has a function called as fencing function. What is this fencing function? It prevents the lateral movement of the proteins and lipids in cell membrane and thus act as a fence. Fourth function is maintenance of cell polarity. So fencing function of the tight junction maintains a cell polarity by keeping the proton in the apical region of the cell membrane. Fifth function is blood-brain barrier. So tight junction in the blood-brain capillaries forms the blood-brain barrier, which prevents the entrance of many substances from capillary blood into the brain tissues. Only lipid-soluble substances like drugs and steroid hormones can pass through the blood-brain barrier. Now moving on to the second junction, that is communicating junction. What is communicating junction? The cell junction, as the name indicates, the cell junction which permits the intercellular exchange of substances is called as communicating junction. This junction prevents the movement of ion and molecule from one cell to the other. Under communicating junction, we have gap junction and chemical synapse. We'll see one by one. First, we'll see about gap junction. What is gap junction? It is an intercellular junction that allows the passage of ions and smaller molecules between the cells, also called as nexus. It is present in heart, basal part of the epithelial cells of the intestinal mucosa. So these are some of the examples where the gap junction is present. Okay. Structure of gap junction. Next we'll see about the structure of gap junction. So first, membranes of the two adjacent cells lie very closely to each other and the intercellular space is reduced. Cytoplasm of the two cells is connected by the channels formed by the membranes of both cells. So the molecules move from one cell to another cell directly through these channels without having contact with ECF. Each channels consist of two halves. Each half belongs to one of the two adjacent cells. Each half of the channel is surrounded by 6 subunits of protons, which is also called as connexins or connexons. Functions of gap junction. Now we are going to see about the functions of gap junction. So the first function, a diameter of the channel in the gap junction is about 1.5 to 3 nanometer. So the channel permits the passage of glucose, amino acid, ions and other substances with molecular weight with a molecular weight less than 1000. Second is helps in exchange of chemical messengers between the cells, helps in rapid propagation of action potential from one cell to another, especially in the heart. This diameter of channels in gap junction is regulated by intracellular calcium ions. When the intracellular calcium ions increases, the proton subunits of connexin surrounding the channel come close to each other by sliding. Next we'll see about chemical synapse. So chemical synapse, it is another type of communicating junction, is chemical synapse. Now we'll see about what is chemical synapse. It is a junction between a nerve fiber and a muscle fiber, or we can also put it in the other term, a junction between two nerve fibers through which the signals are transmitted by the release of chemical transmitter. Example, neuromuscular junction, where ACH, acetylcholine, is the chemical transmitter which is getting released. Now we are going to see about anchoring junction. So what is anchoring junction? Anchoring junctions are nothing but the junction which provides strength to the cells by acting like mechanical attachments. It is responsible for the structural integrity of the tissues, and these are present in the tissues like heart muscle, epidermis of skin. Next, the film attachment between two cells or between a cell and the extracellular matrix, that is provided by either actin filaments or the intermediate filaments. So coming to the classification, if the attachment is through actin filaments, we have two types of junctions. If actin filament is involved, we have adherent junction and focal adhesion. If intermediate filament is involved, we have desmosome, hemidesmosomes. First we'll see about adherent junction, actin filament, and attachment is between cell to cell. It is the focal adhesion is formed by actin filament, but the attachment is between cell and extracellular matrix. Now we will see about desmosome. What is desmosome? It is similar to the adherent junction. Only difference is it is formed by intermediate filament. Hemidesmosomes is similar to focal adhesion, formed by intermediate filament, not actin filament. Connects the actin filament of one cell to the another cell. Where it is present, in the epithelial linings. Where it is present? It is present in the epithelial linings, forms a continuous adhesion just below the tight junction. The membranes of the adjacent cells are held together by some transmembrane proteins called as adherents. Provides a strong mechanical attachments of the adjacent cells. It present in the intercalated disc between the branches of cardiac muscles. The adherent junction present in epidermis helps the skin to withstand the mechanical stress. Next we are going to see about focal adhesion. Focal adhesion, it is the cell to the matrix junction which connects the actin filaments of the cell to the extracellular matrix. The transmembrane proteins which hold epithelium of cell membrane and the matrix called as integrins. So the protein which is present in focal adhesion is called as integrins. So again we are going to continue about desmosome. It is similar to adhescence. It is a cell to cell junction where the intermediate filaments connects two adjacent cells. It is also called as macula adherens. The membranes of two adjacent cells which oppose each other are thickened and become spot-like patches. Desmosomes functions like tight junction. The transmembrane proteins involved in desmosomes are mainly cadherins. Now we are going to see about hemidesmosome. Hemidesmosome is a cell to matrix junction which connects the intermediate filaments of the cell to the extracellular matrix. This type of cell junction is like half desmosome and the thickening of membrane of only one cell occurs. So this is known as hemidesmosome, or it is also called as half desmosome. Mostly the hemidesmosomes connects the cell with their basal lamina. The proteins involved in this are integrins. Now we are going to see about cell adhesion molecules. So the proteins helps cell to attach to each other or basal lamina. What are they? Laminin, integrin, IgG, cadherins and selectins. The functions of cell adhesion molecule is it helps in transmission of signals in and out of the cell. It helps in embryonic development. It helps in holding the tissues together and it helps in inflammation and wound healing. So to summarize, today we have seen about the definition of cell junction, classification of cell junction, and we have seen about the examples of each classification of cell junction along with the functions, and we have given the examples of cell junctions. Thank you.